welcome. I hope you've grabbed a cup of tea and are going to join me for a chat around how we might support each other through some of the key challenges for internal audit as we move beyond the immediacy of COVID-19. Introduction, I'm Liz Sandwith. I'm the Chief Professional Practice Advisor at the Chartered Institute of Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors, UK and Ireland. The Chartered Institute is the only professional body dedicated exclusively to training, supporting and representing internal auditors in the UK and Ireland. We have approximately 10,000 members in all sectors of the economy in all parts of the UK and Ireland. And our members are part of a global network of 200,000 members in 170 countries, all working to the same international standards and code of ethics. So today, what are we looking at? Today we're looking at what the future of internal audit looks like. So I'm going to let you into a secret. Haven't you heard? As well as being Chief Professional Practice Advisor for the Institute, I'm also a soothsayer. You should see the predictions in my teacup. Only joking. I'm looking ahead as we will today explore what the future looks like in terms of workplaces, work approaches, and what this means from an internal audit standpoint. I want us to think about embracing lessons learnt from the virtual workplace and build more flexible and adaptable practices into audit operations going forward. Remember, if you like Facebook streams and want to spread the word, and I'm sure you do, be sure to share today's live stream. You can do so by clicking the share button in the corner of your screen. After all, the more the merrier. The world as we know it has seemingly paused, and we face unprecedented fights on both the health and economic front. Throughout this period, the role of internal audit continues to be critical. Mazars have identified that these exceptional times require a refreshed approach from internal audit, drawing on their specific set of skills, competencies, oversight, and knowledge that internal audit can bring. Internal audit can't simply insist on delivering existing audit plans for organisations. Organisations are going through significant disruption and change, and audit plans are unlikely to be fit for purpose now. Internal audit should fully assess the operational impacts organisations are facing, the new control environments they are operating under, mostly working from home, and adjusting the audit plan accordingly. This is so that internal audit can provide targeted and valuable contributions to organisations across their immediate priority areas over the coming months. Organisations must understand and mitigate the crisis risks they currently face in the context of their own obligations, activities, objectives and values. Changing priorities at organisations should translate to changed priorities for internal audit. Internal audit should provide relevant insights and assurance for the management of emerging risks due to the crisis. So is now the time for internal audit to pause, reflect, and consider whether it's time to forego past practices, even if they have proved remarkably successful, for a very different approach to internal audit. Let's think about that. Internal audit should be proactive and continue to play an important role in helping organisations understand the impact of COVID-19 on their control environment. This includes helping organisations build and shape their control environments in the context of home working arrangements and to prove insight and assurance on how effectively those controls are operating. After all, that's what we do. Internal Audit has a role to provide consulting advice and frontline support under the IIA standards. So, if you're just joining us, welcome to our live stream, Talk to Internal Audit. Today's theme is what the future of internal audit looks like. In looking ahead, we're exploring what the future looks like in terms of workplace and work processes, and what that means from an internal audit standpoint. Embracing recent lessons learned from the virtual workplace to build more flexibility and adaptability into audit operations moving forward. At this juncture, I would like to invite you to share in the comments section of Facebook examples of how you personally have adapted your working practice to reflect changes you have already made in relation to internal audit working practices. Alternatively, you can respond to our poll, which I am just about to put on the screen. The polling question we're looking at today is, do you think the future of internal audit needs to change? And will this be for the better? Yes? No? Not sure? So let's see what you have to say. And then when we've got the results, I'll share them on the screen. Internal audit will need to consider how the pandemic continues to impact work approaches, collaboration and interaction with stakeholders. COVID-19 has put a spotlight on the appropriateness of the remote work environment and the productivity that can be realised in a truly effective remote environment. That was a comment from a CAE. At the same time, it is highlighting how important in-person interactions are, and that certain benefits cannot be fully replicated, no matter how robust the virtual environment. So remember, when you talk to people, those little tells that you pick up on, the non-verbal body language, not quite so easy to do in a virtual Zoom world as it is when you're sitting face to face. So we need to think about that, and we need to think about how that reflects itself in the world of internal audit and how we do our job. So reflections on challenges and successes associated with remote workforces will help shape strategic initiatives, including maintaining a lean physical footprint and extending remote working arrangements long term or even permanently. And we're seeing that in the press, aren't we? We're seeing stories about some organisations saying they're not even thinking about their staff coming back to work until summer 2021. So the future is not so much the here and now, it's going to be longer term than that. So we need to bear that in mind. I will put the results up, you'll be able to see them, but in essence you all said yes. The future of internal audit needs to change, and this will be for the better. This new working model, this remote working, challenging model, will require extensive use of automation tools and frequent touch points with audit teams, clients and stakeholders. In this scenario, internal audit should assess the impact of remote working on audits of entities and business units that are in different locations with limited ability to conduct face-to-face interactions, interviews, walkthroughs, etc. Now, for those perhaps like me that did a lot of commuting before COVID-19 hit us all, and in previous roles that I have had, commuting was part of everyday life. So this new world of less commute, if in fact there's any commute, is challenging in a number of different ways. So we need to bear in mind what some of those are going to look like. So recognizing that business units will be in different locations, we might not be able to have conduct face-to-face interactions, walkthroughs and interviews with people in the same way that we've done in the past. So how are we going to find workarounds for that? Increased reliance on cloud-based IT infrastructure seems inevitable in this remote digital work environment. Already the use of teleconferencing tools such as Zoom, WebEx, Skype, and gosh, aren't there so many? Lifesize was one, Blue Jeans, Google Hangout, the list is endless. That list has proliferated, but these platforms may also introduce some security risks. So if data and records to be tested are not digitized or available electronically, we will have to consider if alternative verification procedures can be performed remotely, given the lack of access to the physical document or data. How are we going to think about that then? What are we going to do? They should also examine whether this leads to a scope or coverage limitation and consequently reduce the degree of assurance. That's not something we want to go down, not the path we want to go down, but I do think we need to think about what the impact of remote working might look like and whether and how we address these issues. I try and avoid, if I can, I don't always succeed, referencing it to working from home, because of course remote working doesn't have to be from home. I was talking to someone the other day that goes into their local coffee shop just for a change of scenery and works there. And I was talking also to a member of the staff at the Institute, and he was telling me when this lockdown first started that he lived near a cemetery, and apparently Wi-Fi was really good in the cemetery, and on sunny days he had plans to work in the cemetery, nice and quiet, he said. And then I said to him, what happens if it rains? And he said, it's okay, there's a park opposite, and in the park is a bandstand, and I can sit in the bandstand. So remote working isn't necessarily working from home, it is just working remotely. So may I share a reminder, if you're just joining us, welcome to our live stream. Delighted to have you here. Today's theme is what the future of internal audit will look like. And in looking ahead, we're exploring life in terms of workplaces, work processes, and what this means from an internal audit standpoint. We need to embrace recent lessons learned from the virtual workplace to build a more flexible, adaptable approach to audit operations going forward. So some real challenges there for us. Some need-based short-term innovations and improvements implemented by internal audit as directly as a result of the crisis are likely to sustain and to become the new normal. And I know I've used the word several times before, but one of our colleagues on our weekly, now fortnightly, virtual Heads of Internal Audit Forum talked about bottling things that we had learnt over the last 20 weeks and carrying them forward into the future so we can open the bottle and use what we have brought forward with us to improve what we do on a daily basis. So we need to think about that, don't we? Flexible remote work arrangements with less face-to-face interaction will likely continue, and a much larger talent pool could potentially become available unencumbered by geographic, physical presence limitations. And we've noticed that at the Institute. When we've done webinars in the past, we might have got tens of people. Now we get hundreds of people, and we get people from the Caribbean, from Chile, from the Philippines joining us. So boundaries have gone, and that is great because we get experience and knowledge from all of these people who are happy to share with us. So we're widening our pool of knowledge. Learning from the upheaval caused by COVID-19, we will need to embed considerations of remotely possible high impact potential black swan events in our risk assessment processes. So do we have any black swan risks to think about? What about climate change? What about the ongoing risks around cybersecurity? Are we sure we've documented them all? Have we really got all our black swan events documented? Specifically, at several global financial institutes, there's an increased focus on emerging risks or external threats, such as climate change, which, like the COVID-19 pandemic, are continuously developing and currently fairly hard to measure. Now, more than ever, it is important to keep abreast of these risks and consider how to provide audit coverage for them. Audit departments can help organisations, as you well know, reset their risk agenda to better identify market signals, especially critical shifts in the business environment that has a risk impact on your organisations. Chief audit execs, heads of audit say that stakeholders will continue to expect thought leadership and proactive engagement from internal audit to help the business remain safe yet commercial. Internal audit's support and partnership with other functions, for example, your chief risk officer, your chief information officer, your data protection officer, your FD, and of course your CEO, as well as other key stakeholders, during the crisis could result in increased mutual appreciation for others' positions, greater empathy, reduced conflict, and enhanced cooperation. Do you think I'm being a little over optimistic? Am I seeing a nirvana, a perfect world? I don't think so. I think we have learnt a lot over the last 21 weeks. As one CAE put it, the situation presents an opportunity to at least partially hit the reset button on aspects of the internal audit function that currently don't practically align with being a trusted advisor and partner. A future-orientated internal audit function needs to be equipped with some obvious, perhaps, capabilities. So let's have a think about what those might be. They need to have a strong grasp of corporate risk strategies. They need to be able to determine adherence to risk appetite and think about risk tolerance when they're auditing. Thoroughly understand complex financial disclosures. Manage the onslaught of legislation, and that really is me looking to the future, horizon scanning, but I feel fairly certain that in the coming months we are going to see some legislative changes. And whilst I don't like using the B word, Brexit, and how that plays out is also going to become a challenge for us all. So we need to be mindful of that. We need to keep a tab on fraud. Cybersecurity is presenting some challenges around the fraud agenda. Organisations going through restructuring, redundancies. There are potential challenges around fraud. So we just need to be mindful of where the fraud risks sit. And we need to be a part of the corporate governance framework. We need to be clear what that governance framework is, what it looks like, and what it should look like. So if as internal auditors we aspire to add value, having got our seat at the top table, don't forget our internal audit code of practice for the private sector and the third sector, and of course our internal audit code of practice for the financial services sector, all talk about our seat at the top table. Alongside management team, we need to enhance our skills. So we need to start developing strong leadership knowledge and capabilities, a good knowledge of the organisation. And that's not just the areas we audit, but a strong knowledge of how your organisation functions. I like to call it commercial acuity, a real understanding of what makes your organisation tick. What is its purpose, its mission, its strategic goals and objectives, its values? Do they all align? Are they all pulling the organisation in the same direction? Or maybe driving is better than pulling. Effective communication with the board, risk management expertise, the ability to evaluate and help prevent fraud. And we do that by looking at the controls management have put in place, don't we, to detect and prevent fraud. Knowledge of the latest information technology and infrastructure, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, blockchain, robotics, the list is endless. A proactive approach rather than a reactive approach to internal audit. As data and technology permeates every aspect of modern organisations, internal audit can no longer work alone. Internal audit teams must expand their skill sets and work alongside other departments to reduce risk, improve control, and identify efficiencies within the organisation more effectively. The drive for innovation with many organisations is forcing the internal audit profession to adapt and evolve at a rapid pace. And many internal auditors, colleagues perhaps, are struggling to keep up with these changes. Internal audit's role in managing organisational risk, and I mean that from a control perspective, have we got the right controls in place to mitigate risk? Its enterprise-wide perspective and its understanding of various frameworks make it multifaceted. But in today's business environment, internal auditors need to expand their abilities beyond traditional areas like accounting, compliance, fraud, and finance to support business change. Many companies are already looking for internal auditors with expertise in technical areas like data science, analytics, IT, cybersecurity, and privacy. The digital world is changing, compelling internal audit to adopt new tools and techniques in order to effectively respond to today's threat landscape. 2020 and beyond presents challenges for internal audit as it faces greater compliance challenges, audit committee demands, technology change, and increased cyber threats. Lots to think about there, aren't there? Getting that balance right with all of those challenges and responding to audit committee and other key stakeholder demands on us are all really important things that we need to consider. However, as long as we have the tools and the resources we need to stay current with the latest developments and advancements, this evolution will bring significant value to businesses everywhere and raise the bar for the internal audit profession. KPMG has identified 4 COVID-19 predictions to transform internal audits. I thought I would share these with you. Data analytics is not negotiable. So we can't sit in our internal audit world and say, yes, data analytics, something that we will look to in the future. COVID-19 has forced the rapid uptake and implementation of critical controls monitoring by many internal audit functions, underpinned and enabled by repeated and remote data analytics. This provides the required momentum for internal audit to continue driving the need for data analytics. Agile and variable assurance. Sorry, I've got a tickle. Gone are the days of beautifully crafted, long and time-consuming internal audit reports, and I know we have all been party to that. These have, thankfully, I'm very thankful about this, have been replaced with targeted planning, shorter, sharper internal audit reviews, and increased collaboration with auditees. I like the word clients more than auditees, but you know what I mean. Examples of these continued changes include greater implementation of agile internal audit approaches. And if you remember, we looked last week, didn't we, at agile mindset. So agile is not simply a methodology. There is an agile methodology, but I'm not talking about it as simply a methodology that you can plug in and start using. I think it's about how we approach our work. Are we agile of mind as well as agile of methodology and technology? So let's see if we can get the balance right. Shorter cycles for internal audit planning. Regular refresh and challenge rather than an annual set and forget internal audit plan. And how many of us have created a plan in November, perhaps, and then for the future year ahead, and the audit committee have approved it, and we are doing audits from that plan in a year the following March. There was one of our guest speakers at our Heads of Internal Audit virtual forum last week was talking about that very thing, and the need now to think faster, to stop having some of these annual plans, to reflect what our audit committee and our other key stakeholders are looking for from internal audit. Where are their concerns? What are we doing to help provide an assurance in relation to areas of concern? Areas of business critical risk. Are we helping the business? So let's think about that. Another topic we talk a lot about, and I've mentioned already this afternoon, concise and timely reporting of observations. I saw a really brilliant, and I think I've mentioned this before, audit memorandum, internal audit memorandum that had been created by a head of internal audit in the financial services world. And he issued that. To be fair, he had an agile methodology, and at the end of each sprint he produced one of those, which he may well send out to his stakeholders. And then at the end of the audit he may have had 4, 5, 6 of these memorandums, and what he was doing was putting them together into one memorandum that he was issuing. That speeds up the process significantly, doesn't it? And those are options and opportunities we can all think about. So concise, timely reporting has to be one of the things that we carry forward into whatever the new world looks like. Internal audit as advisors. Throughout the COVID, we've seen internal audit provide timely and valued assistance to our organisations. Beyond the scope of our internal audit plan, we have likely being called upon to provide proactive assurance and assistance to organisations in this advisor capacity, which may include the following: providing assurance not only to the audit committee, but also advice to first and second lines on appropriate control design to respond to the rapid risk challenges, continuing to respond to and assisting the organisation while maintaining our independence. COVID has demonstrated the ability for internal audit to do so much more for our organisations without impeding independence. And I was talking to a head of audit who was telling me that she was having problems getting her internal auditors back from the first line where they'd been redeployed because they were so valued by the business. They didn't want to let them go back into internal audit. Technology at our core. Internal audit, we have demonstrated our ability to adapt quickly to new technologies. Technology will become a core skill set for auditing as we see organisations embrace automation and technology solutions ever more than they did pre-COVID-19. So maybe we ought to think about some of the following. Use of Bops as part of the internal audit workforce, delivering repeatable tasks to free up capacity to focus on more strategic reviews. A colleague who is a head of audit in Dublin has quite a small team of 6, and he implemented the use of data analytics. And he said that actually what it did was it freed up an entire auditor, but it got internal audit out of the weeds, as he called it, and enabled them to lift their heads up and look more strategically across the organisation. So let's think about freeing up some capacity. Continuous remote monitoring, enabled by data analytics systems and automated routines. Greater use of visualization and dashboarding tools. Uptake of process data mining. Watch out on the website, the Institute's website, because we have a webinar coming up on process data mining to provide visual analysis of processes and variations. It's important that we innovate and prepare for the new world for internal audit post-COVID-19, harnessing the benefits from recent changes and using these as the platform for transformation. However, internal audit still needs to support near-term business priorities, providing critical assistance during organisational response and recovery. So what about future thinking? In today's session, we have explored what the future looks like in terms of workplace, work processes, and what that means from an internal audit standpoint. We sought to explore the ability to embrace recent lessons learnt from the virtual workplace to build more flexible and adaptability into audit operations going forward. COVID-19 will cause and continue to cause irreversible changes in many areas of society. And I'm sure, like me, you are continually seeing changes in businesses on the news on a daily basis, including some that are perhaps yet unforeseen that we don't know about. The level of uncertainty as we move forward is fairly high. While there are extraordinary challenges, there are also unprecedented opportunities for us as internal audit to support the organisation, its clients, redefine our ways of working, and enhance and influence the impact of audit with innovative methodologies and tools. Richard Chambers, our President and CEO for IIA Global, made 5 predictions for the 20s. The rise of Uber auditing. We want it now. How long is it going to take you to do something? Data ethics, artificial intelligence, governance will be the next decade's culture audits. So if you haven't mastered the culture audits yet, we need to catch up. We need to get culture well under our belt so we're ready for the new challenges. The torch will be passed to a new tech-savvy and tech-fearless generation. Obviously, he wasn't referring to me at all. I worry every time I press a button. The image of internal auditors as bean counters is gone forever. And COVID has contributed to that, enabling us to demonstrate the real value we bring to organisations. Scandals, there's going to be more of them, will heighten awareness that internal audit serves the public interest. According to Richard, the IIA's current strategic plan includes a 2030 vision for the profession. His vision is that internal audit professionals will be universally recognised as indispensable to effective governance, risk management and control. The boldest prediction, he said, that he could make would be that we are embodying that vision in 10 years. I hadn't started thinking as far ahead as 2030. I was trying to think about what internal audit might look like in 2025 and build guidance, programs, campaigns to help us all prepare for 2025. Richard has gone a step further and covered the whole of the 20 decade. Are we, as profession and professionals, ready for the next decade? And are we carrying forward what we have learnt through the pandemic? So for those of you just tuning in now, today we spoke about what the future of internal audit looks like. In looking ahead, we explored workplaces, work processes, and what that means from an internal audit standpoint. Embracing lessons learnt from the virtual workplace to build more flexible and adaptability into audit operations going forward. So it's about being flexible and adaptable. So we need to think about that. So as I come to an end of today's session, can I tell you that the live stream is available afterwards for those of your friends, colleagues who may have missed the live version on our Institute's Facebook channel. Follow all the exciting things the Institute is doing on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter. As a member, of course, you have access to the latest edition of the Audit and Risk magazine, which is also available on our website. I'm happy, as you know, those of you that have been with me over the last number of weeks, to take questions via email at liz.sandwith@iia.org.uk. Next week, my colleague Derek Jameson, who is the Director of Regions for the Institute, will be back, and he'll be exploring what is audit committee effectiveness, how internal audit support audit committees and indeed other governance committees in our new normal workplace. After all, audit committees need to be vigilant, agile, disciplined and engaged. And in this session, he will chew over the concept of audit committee effectiveness and attempt to define what it means today. As we move forward into the new future, please don't forget to book your slot in the diary, 4 p.m. every Thursday. Don't forget your tea, coffee, water. Remember, please talk to Internal Audit because the Institute is listening. Thank you. Stay safe and have a great week. Take care. Bye.